touch me one more time and I will shove this tray down your miserable throat!
Stop, please!
No, we're done here!
Please, Naomi, listen to me. Is the child mine? Talk to me, Naomi.
Don't you ever come near me again!
The words rang across the exclusive restaurant, silencing conversations and stopping servers mid-stride. Naomi Cross stood trembling with fury, her pregnant belly pressed against the table she was serving, her dark eyes blazing at the man who'd just grabbed her wrist. Kong Miho went very still, his hand falling away from her arm like he'd been burned. Around them, the restaurant held its collective breath. Everyone recognized him. Seoul's most feared underworld king didn't get threatened. Not ever. Certainly not by a pregnant waitress in a cheap uniform. But Miho wasn't looking at the room full of witnesses. He was looking at her. At the woman who'd vanished from his life 8 months ago, without explanation. At his wife who was now heavily pregnant and serving tables while glaring at him with enough venom to drop a grown man. Naomi, he said quietly, carefully, like approaching a wounded animal. What are you doing here? Working. She lifted her chin, hands tightening protectively on the tray. Something I have to do since some people think money solves everything. Now move before I actually follow through on my threat. If you've been following my channel, I want to thank you for always checking back. And if you're new to the channel, welcome. Do not forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't get to miss out on any of our stories. 8 months ago, Naomi Cross had been his wife. They'd married in a whirlwind ceremony that his mother had orchestrated. Naomi had been a design student working part-time at one of his legitimate businesses. Beautiful, talented, completely out of place in his dangerous world. He'd fallen for her instantly. Completely. In a way that terrified him because King Miho didn't do feelings. He did business. He did power. He did whatever necessary to maintain his position at the top of Seoul's underworld. But Naomi had made him want to be something different. Someone better. For 6 months, they'd built something real despite the forced beginning. He'd come home to her smile, her laughter, her presence that made his cold penthouse feel like a home. Then one day, he'd come back to an empty apartment. Her clothes gone. Her art supplies vanished. No note. No explanation. Just gone, like she'd never existed. His mother had claimed ignorance, had even cried, saying she'd tried to stop Naomi, but the girl had insisted on leaving. For 8 months, he'd torn Seoul apart looking for her. For 8 months, he'd found nothing. Now she was here, pregnant and furious, threatening him with a serving tray. "How far along are you?" he asked, his eyes dropping to her swollen belly despite her hostility. "None of your business." She started to turn away. "Naomi, please. Just tell me. Is it mine? Is that my child?" She froze, her entire body going rigid. When she turned back, tears shimmered in her eyes, but her voice was pure ice. "You lost the right to ask me anything the day you had your mother hand me divorce papers and tell me I wasn't suitable for your world." "I never," he started, but she was already walking away, moving through the restaurant with as much speed as her pregnant body would allow. Miho stood there, shock and fury warring in his chest. Divorce papers? His mother? What had she done? "Excuse me, sir." The restaurant manager appeared, his face red with barely suppressed anger. "Your server was completely out of line. I apologize for her behavior. She will be terminated immediately." The words snapped Miho out of his thoughts. "No, sir. She won't be fired. It was my fault." Miho pulled out his wallet, extracting a thick stack of bills. "I made her uncomfortable. I overstepped. Consider this compensation for the disturbance." The manager's eyes widened at the amount. Easily 10 times what the restaurant probably made in a night. "Sir, that's very generous, but she keeps her job. That's non-negotiable." Miho's voice dropped to something dangerous. "And if I hear she's been treated poorly or fired for any reason in the coming weeks, I'll remember this conversation. Do we understand each other?" The manager paled, clearly recognizing the threat beneath the polite words. "Yes, of course. Perfectly clear." Miho glanced toward the kitchen where Naomi had disappeared, every instinct screaming at him to follow. But he'd seen the fear beneath her anger. The way she'd flinched when he'd first touched her wrist. Whatever his mother had done, whatever lies she'd told, had left deep wounds. Forcing the issue now would only make things worse. He returned to his table where his date sat looking confused and irritated. The woman waiting for him was Amelia Hartford, an elegant American socialite his mother had arranged for him to meet shortly after Naomi's disappearance. His mother had been pushing the relationship hard, talking about business alliances and suitable matches. Amelia's father owned a significant import-export business with operations across Asia and America. Miho had gone through the motions, attending dinners and events with Amelia because his mother wouldn't stop her relentless campaign. But he felt nothing for the woman. No spark. No connection. She was beautiful in a cold, calculated way, but she wasn't Naomi. No one could be Naomi. "I apologize," he said smoothly to Amelia. "Something came up. I need to leave." He was out the door before she could protest, his mind already racing. Divorce papers with his signature. His mother telling Naomi she wasn't suitable. 8 months of his wife suffering alone while pregnant with his child. His mother was going to answer for this. But first, he needed to figure out how to approach Naomi without making her bolt again. The drive home felt endless. Miho's driver navigated Seoul's nighttime traffic while he sat in the back, replaying every moment of that encounter. The fury in Naomi's eyes. The protective way she'd cradled her belly. The exhaustion etched into her beautiful face. She'd been working herself to death while carrying his child. Living God knew where, struggling to survive, all because his mother had destroyed their marriage with lies. He pulled out his phone and made a call. His head of security answered on the first ring. Find out everything about Naomi's life for the past 8 months. Where she's living, how much she's earning, everything. But do it quietly. I don't want her to know she's being watched. He hung up and made another call. This one to his mother. "Miho, darling," she answered in Korean, her voice warm. "What a pleasant surprise. What did you do?" His voice was cold enough to freeze. "What did you tell Naomi? What papers did you forge?" A pause. "Then I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me. I found her. She's 8 months pregnant and serving tables in a restaurant because you convinced her I wanted a divorce." "What did you do?" "I did what was necessary," his mother said, her warmth evaporating. "That girl was completely unsuitable. She would have ruined you. Ruined our family's reputation. You had no right. I had every right as your mother. She was dragging you down. Making you soft. I simply helped her understand that she didn't belong in our world." The admission made his blood run cold. "You're admitting you lied to her. Forged documents. Destroyed my marriage. I saved you from making a terrible mistake." Her voice was firm, unapologetic. "You'll thank me eventually when you marry someone suitable. Someone who understands our world. Amelia is perfect for you. Her family's connections. I was already married to the only woman I'll ever love." His voice shook with barely controlled rage. "And you destroyed that. You made her suffer. Made her think I didn't want her while she was pregnant with my child. That child isn't even confirmed to be yours. Enough." The word came out like a whip crack. "You're cut off. All access to my accounts, all positions in my companies, all influence in my life. Gone. Effective immediately. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious. And if you ever contact Naomi again, if you ever come near her or my child, I will forget you're my mother." His voice dropped to something deadly. "And you know what I do to my enemies." He hung up, hands shaking with fury. Then he took a deep breath, forcing himself to calm down. Rage wouldn't help Naomi. Wouldn't undo the damage. He needed to focus on fixing this, on proving to her that everything his mother said was a lie. The next evening, Miho returned to the restaurant. He requested a different section, not wanting to make Naomi uncomfortable, but positioned himself where he could watch her work. She moved carefully between tables, one hand occasionally pressed to her lower back. The exhaustion on her face made his chest ache. He ate slowly, watching. Learning her patterns. The way she smiled at customers despite obvious discomfort. The careful way she navigated between tables with her pregnant belly. The brief moments she'd pause in a corner, eyes closed, clearly gathering strength to continue. She was struggling. Badly. And every moment he watched made fury at his mother burn hotter. When he left, he made sure his tip was generous, but not so excessive it would insult her. Just enough to help without making her suspicious about who left it. He came back the next night. And the night after that. By the third night, other servers had started to notice. He could hear them whispering, speculating about why Seoul's most powerful man was suddenly a regular at their restaurant. Some thought he was scouting it for purchase. Others whispered about the pregnant server he couldn't seem to stop watching. Naomi noticed too. He could see it in the tension in her shoulders when she passed his table, the careful way she avoided looking directly at him. On the fourth night, she finally broke. She approached his table with visible reluctance, her order pad clutched like a shield. Her manager had clearly assigned her to his section despite her protests. "You're back again." It wasn't a question. Her tone was flat, carefully neutral. "The food is excellent," he said mildly, not looking up from his menu. Right. Because Seoul's most powerful man suddenly developed a passion for overpriced pasta. She shifted her weight, wincing slightly. "What do you want, Miho?" "To eat dinner. Same as everyone else." He finally looked at her, keeping his expression carefully blank. "Unless you'd prefer I go somewhere else?" She studied him for a long moment, clearly trying to figure out his angle. "What will you have?" "Whatever you recommend." "I recommend you stop coming here and leave me alone." "I meant for dinner." His lips quirked slightly. "But I appreciate your honesty." Despite herself, something flickered in her eyes. Almost like amusement. It was gone in a second, but he'd seen it. "The salmon is good," she said finally. "So is the steak." "I'll take the salmon." "Thank you, Naomi." She flinched slightly at her name but nodded and walked away. It was progress. Small, but progress nonetheless. He came back every night that week. Sometimes she served him, sometimes she didn't. When she did, their interactions were brief and professional. But each night, she seemed slightly less hostile. Slightly more willing to meet his eyes. He learned things about her new life in those careful observations. She worked the dinner shift, arriving around 5 and staying until close. She always looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide. Her uniform was too tight across her pregnant belly, clearly not maternity wear. She moved slower as the night went on, her discomfort becoming more obvious. Other servers helped her when they could, taking her heavier trays, covering her tables when she needed breaks. They clearly cared about her, which told him something important. Despite everything she'd been through, Naomi had built connections here. She wasn't completely alone. But she should never have had to struggle like this in the first place. On the 8th night, she finally asked the question he'd been waiting for. "Why are you really here?" She set down his water glass with more force than necessary. "And don't say it's for the food. We both know that's garbage. Maybe I'm here to make sure you're eating properly." He gestured to the kitchen. "Have you had dinner tonight?" "That's none of your business. You're pregnant and working 16-hour shifts. It's absolutely my business. You lost the right to care about me when you signed those divorce papers." Her voice cracked slightly on the words. "I never signed divorce papers, Naomi. I refused. I told my mother I would never let you go." He kept his voice low, aware of nearby diners. "Whatever papers you saw, whatever signature was on them, it wasn't mine. She forged it." Naomi went very still. "You're lying." "I'm not. I came home one day and you were gone. My mother claimed she had no idea where you went. Said she'd tried to stop you but you insisted on leaving." He paused, letting that sink in. "I've been looking for you for 8 months. Every single day." She shook her head, backing up a step. "No." She had papers. Legal documents. "She showed me photos of you with other women. Society women." She said. "She lied." His voice was gentle but firm. "To both of us. Whatever she told you, whatever she showed you, It was all lies to get you to leave. I can't. Naomi pressed a hand to her stomach, breathing hard. I can't do this right now. I have tables. Naomi. No. Just no. She turned and walked away quickly, disappearing into the kitchen. Miho sat back, frustration warring with understanding. He couldn't push too hard or she'd run. But watching her struggle alone while pregnant with his child was killing him. He paid his bill, left another generous tip, and went home to make some very pointed phone calls about his mother. What he didn't know was that someone else had been watching him. Someone who had noticed his nightly visits to this particular restaurant. Someone who had hired a private investigator to follow him. Amelia Hartford sat in her luxury apartment, flipping through photographs her investigator had delivered that evening. Picture after picture of Miho at the restaurant. Miho watching a pregnant waitress. Miho talking to her, his expression soft in a way Amelia had never seen directed at herself. Miho touching the woman's hand, concern written all over his face. The pregnant waitress was beautiful despite her cheap uniform and obvious exhaustion. Dark hair, striking features, and the kind of natural elegance that no amount of money could buy. And the way Miho looked at her made something cold and hard settle in Amelia's chest. She'd been so careful, so patient, playing the perfect fiancé, the suitable match his mother approved of, waiting for Miho to finally propose, to finally commit to their arranged future. Her father's business dealings depended on this alliance. Everything depended on this marriage happening. And now some nobody waitress was threatening everything. Amelia picked up her phone and made a call. I need more information on this woman. Everything. Where she lives, where she's from, how she knows Miho. Everything. She hung up and stared at the photos again, rage simmering beneath her composed exterior. Whoever this woman was, whatever hold she had on Miho, it ended now. The next morning, his head of security delivered a report that made Miho's blood boil. Naomi was living in a rundown studio apartment in one of Seoul's most dangerous neighborhoods. The building had multiple code violations. Her neighbors included drug dealers and prostitutes. The area had one of the highest crime rates in the city. She was making barely enough to cover rent and food, with nothing left over for maternity clothes or prenatal care beyond the bare minimum at a free clinic. She walked to work most days to save bus fare. She'd sold everything of value he'd ever given her, piece by piece, as her situation became more desperate. The report included photos. Naomi climbing 3 flights of stairs to her apartment, one hand on her belly and the other on the railing for support. Naomi at a street vendor buying cheap food for dinner. Naomi standing outside a baby store, staring at cribs and clothes she couldn't afford, tears streaming down her face before she walked away. Every image felt like a knife to his chest. This was his wife, the mother of his child. And she'd been living like this for 8 months while he'd had no idea where to find her. His mother had done this. Her lies and manipulation had put Naomi in danger, had made her struggle alone through her pregnancy. The rage that filled him was cold and calculating. His mother would pay for this. But first, he needed to focus on Naomi. That night at the restaurant, he waited until Naomi's break. He'd learned her schedule by now, knew she took a short break around 8 o'clock. He found her in the staff area, sitting with her shoes off, rubbing her swollen feet with tears streaming silently down her face. The raw exhaustion and pain on her face made something crack in his chest. Before he could think better of it, he was moving toward her. She looked up at his approach, quickly wiping her eyes. You can't be back here. You're in pain. I'm fine. It's just a long shift. She started to put her shoes back on, wincing with each movement. Let me help you. He crouched in front of her before she could protest. Please. Just let me do this one thing. Miho. I know you're angry. I know you don't trust me. I know you probably hate me right now. His hands hovered near her feet, waiting for permission. But you're hurting and pregnant, and I can't just walk away. Please. Something in his voice must have gotten through because she nodded slowly. He took one of her feet carefully, his hands gentle as he began to massage the swollen arch. She inhaled sharply, then slowly relaxed. That actually feels good. You're on your feet too much. This isn't healthy for you or the baby. I don't have a choice. I need this job. You have choices. You're just too stubborn to see them. He moved to her other foot, his touch careful and professional. Come home, Naomi. Let me take care of you. Both of you. I can't just come home. Too much has happened. Too many lies and too much hurt. Her voice was tired, resigned. Even if you didn't sign those papers, your mother still said all those things. She still showed me those photos. She still made it clear I wasn't good enough for you. She was wrong. About all of it. He looked up at her, his expression intense. You were never not good enough. You were everything. You are everything. Then why did she hate me so much? Why work so hard to get rid of me? Because she's a snob who cares more about appearances than her son's happiness. Because you're not Korean and not from the right family. Because you made me want to be better and she couldn't control that. His hands stilled on her feet. Because I loved you more than I've ever loved anything and that terrified her. Naomi's breath caught. Loved? Past tense. Love. Present tense. Continuous. Unchanging despite 8 months of searching and grief and rage. His voice was raw with emotion. I never stopped loving you, Naomi. Not for a single day. She looked away, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. This is too much. I need time to think. Take all the time you need. I'll be here. He gently helped her put her shoes back on. But please, at least let me help you financially. Let me make sure you and the baby have what you need. I don't want your money. It's not about what you want. It's about what's right. He stood, pulling out his wallet. I'm the father of that child, aren't I? She hesitated, then nodded slowly. Yes. The confirmation hit him like a physical blow. He'd known, had calculated the timing, but hearing her say it made everything real. Made the past 8 months of suffering and separation feel even more tragic and wasteful. Then let me help. Even if you never forgive me. Even if you never come home. Let me make sure my child is taken care of. Before she could argue, her manager appeared in the doorway. Miss Cross, your break ended 5 minutes ago. We have tables waiting. She's done for the night, Miho said, his voice taking on that commanding edge that made people obey without question. She's not feeling well. Sir, you can't just. How much does she make in an average shift? Including tips. Miho pulled out a stack of bills without waiting for an answer. I'll cover it. Plus extra for the inconvenience. The manager's eyes widened at the amount in Miho's hand. It was easily 3 times what Naomi would make in a good night. That's really not necessary. Consider it a donation to your establishment. Miho pressed the money into the man's hand with enough force to make it clear this wasn't negotiable. She's going home. Now. And she's taking tomorrow off too. Paid. He turned back to Naomi, who was staring at him with a mix of frustration and something that might have been gratitude. Come on. I'll drive you home. I can take the bus. You can barely walk. Don't be stubborn. He offered his hand, palm up, waiting. Please. Just let me make sure you get home safely. After a long moment, she took his hand. Her fingers were cold and trembling in his, and the simple touch sent electricity through both of them. That same connection that had always existed between them, still there despite everything that had happened. Despite 8 months of separation and pain. His car was waiting outside, his driver standing ready. He helped her in carefully, mindful of her belly, then climbed in beside her. The interior smelled like leather and his cologne, scents that were achingly familiar to Naomi. She'd spent so many nights in this car, his hand on her thigh as they drove home together, stealing kisses at red lights, laughing about their day. Now they sat in silence, the weight of everything unsaid filling the space between them. Where do you live? He asked gently. She gave him an address in one of Seoul's poorest neighborhoods. His jaw clenched, but he said nothing, just directed his driver to the location. He'd already seen the building in the surveillance photos, but being there in person was worse. Much worse. The drive took 20 minutes through increasingly run-down streets. Trash accumulated in corners. Buildings showed signs of neglect and decay. People loitered on street corners, eyeing his expensive car with calculation. When they arrived at her building, his expression darkened. The area was even more dangerous at night than the photos had suggested. Poorly lit streets. The building itself looked like it should have been condemned years ago, with crumbling concrete and broken windows on the ground floor. "You've been living here?" He couldn't keep the horror from his voice. "It's what I can afford." She reached for the door handle, defensive now. "Not all of us have penthouse apartments and unlimited money." "Wait." He caught her hand gently, stopping her from leaving. "At least let me walk you up. Make sure you get inside safely." She looked like she wanted to argue, but finally nodded, perhaps recognizing that the neighborhood really wasn't safe for a woman alone, especially not a heavily pregnant one. He helped her out of the car, noting how his driver immediately locked the doors and kept the engine running. The building's entrance had no security, the lock on the main door broken. The stairwell smelled like mold and urine and things he didn't want to identify. They climbed 3 flights of stairs slowly, Naomi pausing every few steps to catch her breath. Miho stayed close, one hand hovering near her back in case she stumbled, fighting the urge to just pick her up and carry her. Her apartment was at the end of a dim hallway. She fumbled with her keys, and he noticed her hands were shaking. From exhaustion or his presence or both, he wasn't sure. When she finally got the door open, he stood in the doorway, taking in the reality of how she'd been living. The apartment was barely larger than a closet, maybe 200 square feet total. A thin mattress on the floor in one corner. A hot plate and mini fridge that served as her kitchen. A tiny bathroom visible through a partially open door. Clothes hanging from nails hammered into the wall. No furniture except a rickety folding chair. No decorations. Nothing of the beautiful home they'd shared together. Everything she'd owned when she was with him, all the beautiful things he'd given her, were gone. Sold, probably piece by piece, to pay for this place and food. The single window overlooked a filthy alley. The walls were thin enough that he could hear neighbors arguing in Korean and what sounded like a baby crying somewhere nearby. Miho stood frozen, unable to process how far she'd fallen. How desperate her situation was. This wasn't poverty. This was barely surviving. And she'd been doing it alone while pregnant with his child. "Naomi," he said, his voice thick with emotion he couldn't contain. "You can't stay here. This isn't safe. Especially not for a pregnant woman. It's all I have." She moved further into the tiny space, putting distance between them. Creating a barrier he could feel even if he couldn't see. "Not all of us have penthouse apartments and unlimited money. You did. You had everything. You left it." The words came out harsher than he intended, born from 8 months of not understanding why she'd gone. "I left because your mother convinced me I had no choice." Her voice rose, anger finally breaking through the careful control she'd maintained. "She showed me papers. Photos. She told me you were embarrassed by me. That you wanted me gone but were too polite to say it yourself. She gave me money and told me if I really loved you, I'd disappear so you could have the life you deserved." Her hands pressed protectively to her belly, cradling the life growing inside her. "So I left. I took her money and I left because I thought that's what you wanted. I thought I was doing the right thing. The loving thing." Tears streamed down her face now, months of pain and loneliness pouring out. "And when the money ran out after 2 months, I sold everything you gave me. Every piece of jewelry. Every designer dress. Every beautiful thing that reminded me of the life I thought I had with you. I sold it all just to eat. Just to have a roof over my head." Her voice broke completely. "And when that money ran out too, I ended up here. Working myself to exhaustion for barely enough to survive. Going to bed hungry some nights so the baby would be okay. Crying myself to sleep every night wondering what I did wrong to make you stop loving me. What was so terrible about me that you needed to get rid of me? You did nothing wrong." Miho crossed to her in 2 long strides, his hands framing her face with a gentleness that contrasted sharply with the fury burning in his eyes. "Nothing. Do you understand? My mother is a manipulative woman who destroyed our marriage because of her prejudice and her need to control my life. Because she couldn't stand that I chose you. That I loved you more than I cared about her approval or her precious family reputation. He rested his forehead against hers, his voice breaking with emotion. I never stopped loving you. Not for 1 second. Every day without you was torture. Every morning I woke up alone felt like dying. Every lead that went nowhere, every place I searched that didn't have you, felt like another piece of me being torn away. His thumbs brushed away her tears with infinite gentleness. I was drowning, Naomi. Going through the motions of living, but not actually being alive. And the only thing keeping me going was hope. Hope that I'd find you. Hope that wherever you were okay. Hope that maybe, somehow, you still loved me too. I don't know if I can trust you again, she whispered, her voice small and scared in a way that broke his heart. I don't know if I can survive being left again. Being told I'm not good enough again. Then don't trust me yet. Don't come home yet. But let me help you. Let me make sure you're safe and fed and taken care of. His hands moved from her face to her shoulders, steady and warm. Let me prove to you that everything my mother said was a lie. That you were always good enough. That you were always more than enough. Give me that chance. Please. She searched his eyes for a long moment, looking for deception or hidden motives. But all she saw was sincerity. Love. Desperate hope that she'd give him the chance to fix what his mother had broken. Okay, she finally whispered. But slowly. No moving back in. No big gestures. Just slowly. Slowly, he agreed, relief flooding through him so intensely it made him dizzy. Whatever pace you need. Whatever time it takes. I'll be here. He kissed her forehead gently, reverently, like she was something precious and fragile. Then he forced himself to step back, to give her space even though every instinct screamed at him to stay. To wrap her in his arms and never let go. Get some rest, he said, his voice rough with restrained emotion. I'll be back tomorrow. Mijo? He turned at the door, hope sparking in his chest. Thank you. For tonight. For believing me. For not giving up. Always, he said simply, the word carrying the weight of a vow. I'll never give up on us. I couldn't even if I wanted to. Over the next 2 weeks, Mijo showed up at the restaurant every night without fail. Sometimes Naomi served him, sometimes she didn't. But afterward, he'd wait outside and drive her home, making sure she got inside safely. They'd talk in his car before she went up to her apartment, small conversations about nothing particularly important at first. Her pregnancy cravings, which were apparently bizarre and specific. His day at work, carefully edited to remove anything too dark or violent. The weather, which had turned cold as autumn deepened. Seoul's traffic, which was always terrible. Carefully avoiding the big topics still between them. But slowly, carefully, she was letting him back in. He could see it in the small things. The way she smiled more easily when she saw him waiting. The way she didn't flinch anymore when he touched her hand. The way she'd lean against him slightly during the drive home, exhaustion overriding caution and mistrust. He learned more about her life in those conversations. How she'd ended up at the restaurant through a coworker from another job who'd put in a good word for her. How the other servers had adopted her, helping with her heavier trays and covering for her when she needed breaks. How terrified she was of giving birth alone, of being a single mother with no support system. Each revelation made him more determined to prove he wasn't going anywhere. That she wouldn't have to do any of this alone. But what he didn't realize was that his nightly visits hadn't gone unnoticed. Amelia's investigator had been thorough, documenting every moment Mijo spent with Naomi. Every tender look. Every gentle touch. Every lingering conversation in his car outside that rundown building. The evidence was damning and Amelia's patience was running out. On the 10th night, something shifted between them. He was waiting outside as usual when Naomi emerged from the restaurant, but tonight she looked even more exhausted than normal. She was walking with a pronounced limp, her face tight with pain. What's wrong? He was out of the car immediately, crossing to her with concern written all over his face. Nothing. Just my feet. But her voice was strained, and she was blinking back tears. Get in the car. He helped her into the back seat, then surprised her by climbing in and closing the door. Let me see. Miho, it's fine. It's not fine. Let me see your feet. She hesitated, then slowly removed her shoes. Her feet were swollen to nearly twice their normal size, angry red marks where the shoes had cut into her skin. In several places, she had blisters that had burst and were now bleeding. Miho made a sound low in his throat that was almost a growl. How long have they been like this? A few days. Maybe a week. It's normal for pregnancy. It's not normal. You need proper shoes. Maternity ones with support. He was already pulling out his phone. And you need to see a doctor. This level of swelling isn't healthy. I can't afford. I'm not asking your permission. His voice was firm but gentle. Tomorrow. I'm taking you to see a doctor. And we're getting you proper shoes. No arguments. She wanted to argue. He could see it in her eyes. But her feet hurt so badly and she was so tired of struggling alone that she just nodded. Okay, she whispered. Tomorrow. He looked at her swollen feet again, something breaking in his chest. Then, without asking permission, he shifted her legs into his lap and began gently massaging her feet, careful of the blisters and raw spots. Naomi gasped, then slowly relaxed as his skilled hands eased the aching muscles. That feels amazing. You shouldn't have been walking on these. You should have called me. I don't have your number. He looked up, surprise and something like hurt crossing his face. You deleted it? I had to. Every time I saw your name, I wanted to call. Wanted to hear your voice. It was easier to just remove the temptation. The admission hung between them, raw and honest. Miho continued massaging her feet, processing what she'd said. Even after his mother's lies, even when she'd thought he'd rejected her, she'd still wanted to reach out to him. Still loved him enough that seeing his name hurt. You have it now, he said quietly. My number is programmed into your phone. I had my assistant do it yesterday when you went to the bathroom on your break. I hope that's okay. She should have been annoyed by the presumption, but instead she felt relief. That's very invasive. I know. But I needed to know you could reach me if something went wrong. If the baby came early or you needed help. His hands stilled on her feet. I've missed so much already. I can't miss anything else. They sat in comfortable silence for a long moment, his hands gentle on her feet, the city lights of Seoul flickering outside the car windows. Tell me about the pregnancy, he said softly. Tell me everything I've missed. So she did. She told him about the morning sickness that had lasted well into her second trimester. About the first time she felt the baby move, alone in her tiny apartment with no one to share the wonder with. About the ultrasounds she'd attended at the free clinic, crying in the parking lot afterward because she'd had to see their baby's heartbeat alone. She told him about the cravings, the mood swings, the fear. About lying awake at night wondering how she'd afford diapers and formula. About researching shelters for single mothers, just in case. About the shame and guilt she felt for not being able to provide better for their child. Miho listened to all of it, his face carefully controlled, but his eyes shining with unshed tears. When she finally fell silent, emotionally exhausted, he pulled her close. I'm so sorry, he said, his voice rough with emotion. I'm so sorry you went through all of that alone. That you had to be scared and struggling while I had no idea where you were. I'm sorry my mother did this to us. To you. It wasn't your fault. It was my family. My responsibility to protect you from exactly this kind of manipulation. His arms tightened around her. But I promise you, Naomi. I swear on everything I have. You will never be alone again. You will never have to struggle again. I'm here now and I'm not going anywhere. She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to so badly it hurt. But trust was a fragile thing, and his mother had shattered her so completely. Just take it slow, she said against his chest. That's all I'm asking. Just slow. As slow as you need, he promised. I'll wait forever if that's what it takes. When Miho finally arrived home that night, well past midnight, he was exhausted but filled with cautious hope. Naomi had let him in just a little more. Had trusted him with her pain and her fears. It was progress. He pushed open the door to his penthouse, already loosening his tie, ready for a shower and maybe a few hours of sleep before starting the cycle again tomorrow. But the living room lights were on. Amelia Hartford sat on his sofa, perfectly composed in a designer dress, a folder of photographs spread across the coffee table in front of her. Her expression was cold, calculating, dangerous. "Welcome home, darling," she said, her American accent sharp with barely contained fury. "We need to talk." Miho's expression went blank, the walls coming up instantly. "What are you doing here? How did you get in?" "Your mother gave me a key. Said I should feel at home here since we'll be married soon." She gestured to the photographs. "Though judging by these, you seem to have other plans." He moved closer, looking at the images spread across his coffee table. Picture after picture of him at the restaurant. With Naomi. Driving her home. Touching her hand. His expression soft and open in ways Amelia had never seen. "You had me followed." His voice was dangerously quiet. "I had my future husband followed because he's been lying to me for weeks." She stood, crossing to him with measured steps. "Every night, you tell me you're working late. Business meetings. Important deals. But you're really visiting some pregnant waitress in a cheap uniform. That's none of your business." "It's absolutely my business." Her composure cracked, fury bleeding through. "We're engaged, Miho. Or have you forgotten? My father and your mother have been planning this alliance for months. Everything is arranged. The venue, the guest list, the merger of our companies. We're not engaged," he cut her off coldly. "My mother arranged dinners. I attended them to keep her quiet. But I never proposed. Never agreed to marriage. Never gave you any reason to think there was a future between us. You didn't say no either." Her eyes narrowed. "You went along with it. Let everyone believe we were a couple. Let me believe. Then that's my fault for not being clear enough." He moved to the bar, pouring himself a drink he desperately needed. "But I'm being clear now. There is no engagement. There will be no wedding. Whatever business arrangement your father and my mother cooked up, it ends tonight." Amelia stared at him, disbelief warring with rage on her perfect features. "Because of her? Because of some nobody who's what? Carrying your bastard." The glass in Miho's hand cracked under the pressure of his grip. He set it down carefully, turned to face Amelia, and the expression on his face made her take an involuntary step back. "Don't." His voice was soft, lethal. "Don't you ever speak about her that way again." "Or what?" Amelia recovered her courage, lifting her chin defiantly. "What are you going to do?" "I know who she is, Miho. I had her investigated. Naomi Cross, your little wife who ran away 8 months ago. Living in squalor, working herself to death. And you're sneaking around like some lovesick fool instead of acting like the powerful man you're supposed to be. Get out. I'm not going anywhere until we settle this." She moved closer, her voice dropping to something almost pleading. "We could be perfect together. Our families, our businesses, everything aligned. Why throw it all away for someone who already left you once?" "Because I love her." The words were simple, absolute. "Because she's my wife. The mother of my child. The only woman I'll ever want. And nothing you say or do will change that." Amelia's face twisted with fury and something that might have been hurt. "You're making a mistake. My father won't take this well. Your mother won't either. You're destroying valuable alliances for." Miho moved so fast she didn't see it coming. One moment he was across the room, the next he had her wrist in an iron grip, pulling her close enough that she could feel the heat of his rage radiating off him. "If you ever go close to her again," he growled, his voice dropping to something dark and dangerous that reminded Amelia exactly who she was dealing with, "I will make your life a living hell. This is Korea, not America. I won't hesitate to hurt you and go to jail for it. Do you understand me?" Fear shot through Amelia, her heart racing. This was the Miho she'd heard stories about, the ruthless underworld king who didn't make empty threats. His grip on her wrist was painful, his eyes cold and merciless. "Let go of me," she whispered, trying to maintain her dignity despite the terror flooding through her. He released her abruptly, and she stumbled back, cradling her wrist. "Get out of my home. Lose my number. Stay away from Naomi. And tell your father whatever business he thought we had is finished. Amelia grabbed her purse with shaking hands, but at the door, she turned back. The fear was still there, but something harder had settled over it. Something calculating and cold. You'll regret this, she said quietly. Both of you will. Is that a threat? It's a promise. She gave him one last look of pure hatred before walking out, the door closing with a sharp click behind her. Miho stood alone in his penthouse, fury and anxiety warring in his chest. He should have ended things with Amelia weeks ago, should have made it clear from the start that he wasn't interested. But he'd been too focused on finding Naomi, on fixing what his mother had broken. Now Amelia knew about Naomi. Had her investigated. Had photographs of her, knew where she worked, where she lived. He pulled out his phone and made a call to his head of security. I need protection on Naomi Cross. Immediately. Someone's made threats. Already done, sir. We've had discreet surveillance since you found her. Make it less discreet. I want her to know she's being watched over. And I want reports every hour. He paused. And get me everything on Amelia Hartford and her father. Everything. Business dealings, associates, anything that might be useful. Yes, sir. Miho hung up and stared out at Seoul's glittering skyline. He'd thought his mother was the only obstacle to overcome. Now it seemed there were more complications ahead. But he'd meant what he said to Amelia. He'd destroy anyone who threatened Naomi or their child. Anyone. The next few days passed in tense anticipation. Miho continued his nightly visits to the restaurant, driving Naomi home, their conversations growing deeper and more honest. He didn't tell her about Amelia's visit or the threats she'd made. Naomi had enough stress without adding that burden. On the 15th night, he took Naomi to the doctor's appointment as promised. I have a doctor's appointment tomorrow, she had said quietly the night before as they sat outside her building. For the baby. At the free clinic. What time? He asked immediately, already mentally rearranging his schedule. 10 in the morning. But you don't have to. I'll be there. His voice left no room for argument. Text me the address. I'll pick you up at 9:30. She studied him for a long moment, weighing her options. Then slowly she nodded. Okay, 9:30. The next morning, Miho arrived exactly on time, dressed more casually than she'd seen him in months. Dark jeans, a sweater, a leather jacket that made him look younger and less intimidating than his usual tailored suits. He helped her down the treacherous stairs and into his car, his hand steady on her back. They drove to the clinic she'd specified, and Miho's expression grew darker with each passing block. The neighborhood was rough, the clinic itself a rundown building with cracked windows and peeling paint. Inside, the waiting room was packed with people, many looking sick or injured. The chairs were mismatched and uncomfortable. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead. How long do you usually wait? He asked, taking in the crowded space with barely concealed anger. 3 or 4 hours, usually. Sometimes longer if there are emergencies. She moved toward the check-in desk. It's free, so you can't really complain. Unacceptable. He pulled out his phone, already dialing. Miho, don't. But he was already speaking rapidly in Korean, his voice low and commanding. She caught enough words to understand he was calling in favors, making arrangements, pulling strings the way only someone with his power and connections could. Within 20 minutes, a sleek black car pulled up outside. A woman in professional attire emerged, introducing herself as Dr. Han's assistant. Dr. Han, she explained, was Seoul's premier obstetrician, and she'd arranged for Naomi to be seen immediately at their private clinic across the city. You can't just buy your way into everything, Naomi protested as Miho guided her back to his car. Watch me. He glanced at her, his expression softening slightly. You and our baby deserve the best care available. Not sitting in a crowded clinic for hours while you're exhausted and uncomfortable. I'm not a charity case. You're not charity. You're my wife. The mother of my child. His hand found hers, squeezing gently. Let me do this. Please. You've been handling everything alone for 8 months. Let me help now. The fight drained out of her. She was tired of being proud, tired of struggling, tired of pretending she didn't need help. Okay, she whispered. Okay. The private clinic was everything the free one wasn't. Clean, modern, efficient. Soft music played in the waiting room, which had comfortable chairs and fresh flowers. The staff treated Naomi like royalty, offering her water and snacks, speaking to her in gentle, respectful tones. Dr. Han herself was warm and professional, taking time to explain everything, answering all of Naomi's questions with patience and care. Miho held her hand through the entire examination, his eyes fixed on her face, reading every expression. When they moved to the ultrasound room, the lights dimmed and the screen flickered to life. And suddenly, there she was. Their daughter. Moving and real and absolutely perfect. Both of them went silent, completely transfixed. Miho stared at the screen like it held the secrets of the universe, his grip on Naomi's hand tightening until it almost hurt. Everything looks very good, Dr. Han said, her voice warm with approval. Baby is healthy, excellent size for gestational age, strong heartbeat. All measurements are exactly where they should be. She moved the wand, showing them different angles. Due date is approximately 6 weeks from now. Mother needs better nutrition and more rest, but overall everything is progressing beautifully. 6 weeks, Miho repeated, his voice thick with emotion. That's not long. No, Dr. Han agreed with a smile. You'll want to start preparing. Would you like to know the gender? I can see it clearly here. Naomi looked at Miho. He looked at her, his eyes shining with unshed tears. Together, he asked softly, his voice breaking slightly. Together, she confirmed, her own eyes filling. It's a girl, Dr. Han announced gently. A healthy, beautiful baby girl. Miho made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. His free hand went to Naomi's belly, touching the swell of their daughter through the thin gown with reverent wonder. A girl. We're having a daughter. Naomi was crying too, overwhelmed by seeing him like this. By the reality of their daughter becoming tangible and real on that screen. By the look of absolute wonder and love on Miho's face. I want to be there, he said urgently, still staring at the ultrasound screen where their daughter moved and kicked. When she's born, I want to be in the room. I want to hold your hand. I want to be the first person she sees when she comes into this world. Please, Naomi. Don't shut me out of this. Okay, she whispered, crying harder now. You can be there. I want you there. His eyes met hers, full of gratitude and love and hope. Then he did something that surprised her completely. He leaned down and pressed a gentle kiss to her belly through the gown, his lips moving in what might have been a prayer or a promise to their unborn daughter. I'm here now, he whispered against her stomach. Daddy's here. And I'm never leaving again. Dr. Han smiled at them both, giving them a moment. When she finally spoke again, her voice was gentle. I'm also concerned about your living situation, Mrs. King. The address in your file is in a neighborhood that's not safe for a pregnant woman or a newborn. Naomi tensed, embarrassment flooding through her. It's what I can afford. That ends today, Miho said firmly. She's moving. Immediately. Miho. I'm not arguing about this. He looked at Dr. Han. What else does she need? What should I be doing to ensure she and the baby are healthy? Dr. Han outlined a plan. Better nutrition, more rest, reduced stress. Prenatal vitamins, regular checkups, preparation for labor. She gave them pamphlets and recommendations, speaking primarily to Miho since it was clear he was the one with resources. In the car afterwards, Miho couldn't stop looking at the ultrasound photos Dr. Han had printed for them. His expression was one of complete awe, like he couldn't quite believe what he was seeing was real. I missed so much, he said quietly. 7 months of your pregnancy. 7 months of her growing. Of you needing me and me not being there. You're here now. That's what matters. It's not enough. He turned to face her fully, his expression intense. I need to tell you something. About why I really left the restaurant that first night. About what I've been doing. She waited, watching him carefully. I've been having you watched. Not in a creepy way, he added quickly at her alarmed expression. But I needed to know you were safe. That your building had security, that you weren't being harassed, that you had food. I've been paying your landlord extra to keep the heat working and fix things that break. I've been ensuring you get the better shifts at the restaurant, making sure your coworkers look out for you. You've been manipulating my life. I've been protecting you from a distance because you weren't ready to let me do it up close. His voice was unapologetic. And I'd do it again. I'd do anything to keep you and our daughter safe. She should have been angry, should have felt violated. But instead, she felt something warm unfurl in her chest. Even when she'd pushed him away, he'd been there, watching over her, keeping her safe in the only way she'd allow. That's very controlling, she said, but there was no heat in it. I know. I'm working on it. He touched her face gently. But Naomi, I need you to hear this. Really hear it. I would burn my entire empire to the ground before I'd let anyone take you from me again. My business, my reputation, my position. All of it means nothing without you. Miho. I mean it. You are my priority. You and our daughter. Everything else is just details. His thumb brushed her cheekbone with infinite tenderness. So please stop protecting me from things I don't need protection from. Stop sacrificing yourself for my sake. We're supposed to face things together. She leaned into his touch, 8 months of loneliness and fear finally cracking open. I don't know how to stop being scared. Then be scared with me instead of alone. He pressed his forehead to hers. Let me help you carry it. Let me be what I should have been from the beginning. For the first time in 8 months, Naomi let herself believe it might actually be possible. That maybe, just maybe, they could find their way back to each other. But their peace was about to be shattered. 3 days later, Naomi's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. She was on her break at the restaurant, feet propped up, when she opened it. Stay away from Miho. He's mine. This is your only warning. Her blood ran cold. Another text came through, this one with a photo attached. It was her, walking to work that morning, taken from across the street. Someone had been watching her. Asterisk, you think you can just waltz back into his life? You're nothing. A nobody. He's going to marry me, and you're just an inconvenient complication. Naomi's hands shook as she stared at the messages. Before she could respond or even process what was happening, another text came through. Leave Seoul. Go back to whatever hole you crawled out of. If you don't, you'll regret it. She deleted the messages immediately, her heart racing. She should tell Miho. Should show him the threats. But part of her wondered if maybe the woman was right. Maybe she was just a complication in his life. Maybe he did have someone else, someone his mother approved of, someone suitable. She tried to push the thoughts away, but they lingered like poison. 2 days later, as Naomi was walking home from work in the early evening, a sleek black Mercedes pulled up beside her. The window rolled down, and a beautiful blonde woman looked out. Amelia Hartford. You must be Naomi, Amelia said, her American accent crisp and cold. Get in. We need to talk. I don't know you. But I know you. I'm Miho's fiancé. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Now get in the car before I make a scene. Naomi's instinct was to run, but there were people around, and she was exhausted and pregnant and frankly too curious about who this woman was. She climbed into the passenger seat. Amelia pulled away from the curb smoothly. So, you're the famous Naomi. The one who ran away. The one he's been obsessing over. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't play dumb. It's beneath you. Amelia glanced at her, taking in the cheap clothes, the obvious exhaustion, the pregnant belly. He visits you every night. Drives you home. Touches you like you're something precious. Did you think I wouldn't notice? We're married, Naomi said quietly. We're married. I don't know anymore. Are you? Amelia's smile turned sharp. Because from where I'm sitting, you abandoned him. Left without a word. And I've been the one keeping him company. Meeting his mother. Planning our future. She pulled the car over abruptly, turning to face Naomi fully. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to disappear again. For good this time. Leave Seoul, leave Korea, leave his life. He'll mourn for a while, but eventually he'll move on. He'll marry me like he's supposed to. And if I don't? Amelia's eyes went cold. Then I'll make you regret it. You think your life is hard now? Working in that pathetic restaurant? Living in that slum? I can make it so much worse. I have resources you can't imagine. Connections. Power. She reached into her purse and pulled out a thick envelope. There's $50,000 in here. More than enough to start over somewhere far away. Take it and go. Tonight. Naomi stared at the envelope, then at Amelia. This was eerily familiar. His mother had done almost exactly this 8 months ago. No, she said softly. Excuse me. I said no. Naomi opened the car door. I'm not running anymore. Not for you, not for anyone. She climbed out of the car, but before she could close the door, Amelia grabbed her arm hard enough to bruise. You're making a mistake, Amelia hissed. Naomi jerked her arm free and stepped back. For a moment, the two women stared at each other, and Naomi could see genuine fury in Amelia's eyes. Something unhinged and dangerous. Then Amelia's expression shifted to something calculating. Next time, she said quietly, I won't be this nice. She drove off, leaving Naomi standing on the sidewalk, heart racing, arm throbbing where Amelia had grabbed her. Naomi made it home on shaking legs, locked her door, and sat on her mattress trying to process what had just happened. She knew she should tell Miho. Should show him the bruise forming on her arm. But she was scared. Scared of being the cause of more conflict. Scared that maybe Amelia was right and she was just complicating his life. So she said nothing. The next evening, Miho showed up at the restaurant as usual, but Naomi couldn't quite meet his eyes. She served his table efficiently, professionally, keeping her distance. You're being quiet tonight, he observed as she refilled his water. Just tired. Naomi. He caught her hand gently. What's wrong? Nothing. I'm fine. But as she turned to leave, her sleeve rode up slightly, revealing the edge of a dark bruise on her upper arm. Miho's eyes locked onto it immediately. What's that? His voice went deadly quiet. Nothing. I bumped into something at work. Show me. It wasn't a request. Miho. Show me. Now. Reluctantly, she pulled up her sleeve, revealing the full extent of the bruise. It was clearly from someone's hand, the finger marks visible against her skin. The temperature in the restaurant seemed to drop 10 degrees. Miho stood slowly, his expression transforming into something cold and lethal. Who did this to you? It doesn't matter. It matters to me. Who touched you? Who hurt you? His voice was getting louder, drawing attention from nearby tables. Please, Miho, not here. Was it my mother? Did she come to you again? No. Naomi glanced around at the staring customers, embarrassment flooding through her. Can we please not do this here? He seemed to realize they had an audience. With visible effort, he reined in his fury. My car. Now. We're talking about this. She wanted to argue, but the look in his eyes stopped her. She told her manager she wasn't feeling well and needed to leave early, then followed Miho out to his car. The moment the door closed, sealing them in privacy, he turned to her. Tell me everything. Don't leave anything out. So she did. The threatening texts. Amelia stopping her on the street. The envelope of money. The threat. All of it. With each word, Miho's expression grew darker, more dangerous. By the time she finished, his hands were clenched into fists, his jaw tight with barely controlled rage. Her name is Amelia Hartford, Naomi finished quietly. She said she's your fiancé. She's not. She's nothing. He pulled out his phone. I'm calling my security. You're getting protection immediately. Miho, no. This isn't negotiable. He was already dialing. She threatened you. Put her hands on you while you're pregnant. I want her found. I want to know everywhere she goes, everyone she talks to. He gave rapid orders in Korean, his voice sharp and commanding. Then he hung up and turned back to Naomi. I'm taking you home. My home. Not that apartment. You're not going back there. You can't just. I can and I will. His hand found her face, gentle despite the fury radiating off him. She knows where you live. Where you work. She's already proven she's willing to hurt you. I'm not taking any chances with you or our daughter. But what about Amelia? What about your mother? Let me worry about them. His thumb brushed across her cheek. Right now, all that matters is keeping you safe. Naomi wanted to argue, but the fear she'd been holding at bay since Amelia's threats finally broke through. She was tired of being strong. Tired of handling everything alone. Okay, she whispered. Take me home. They drove to his penthouse in tense silence. Once inside, Miho settled her on the sofa with pillows and blankets, his movements careful and controlled despite the rage still simmering beneath the surface. I need to go out for a few hours, he said, his voice tight. But you'll be safe here. I have security watching the building. Don't open the door for anyone. Not even my mother. Where are you going? To have a conversation with Amelia and my mother. The way he said it made Naomi's blood run cold. This was the Miho she'd heard stories about but never seen. The underworld king who didn't tolerate threats. Miho, please don't do anything you'll regret. The only thing I regret is not handling this sooner. He kissed her forehead, his lips lingering. Rest. I'll be back soon. Then he was gone, leaving Naomi alone in the penthouse that had once been her home. Miho drove through Seoul's streets with cold, calculated fury coursing through his veins. Amelia had made a fatal mistake. She'd threatened what was his. Touched Naomi. Left bruises on her skin. That could not stand. He arrived at his mother's house, the family estate where he'd grown up, just after 9 p.m. The lights were on, and as he suspected, Amelia's car was parked in the circular driveway. Perfect. He let himself in with his key, following the sound of voices to the formal living room. His mother and Amelia sat together on the ornate sofa, clearly in the middle of some discussion. They both looked up at his entrance, and his mother's face lit up with a smile. Miho, what a lovely surprise. Amelia and I were just discussing the engagement party. There is no engagement party. His voice was ice. There is no engagement. There is no future between Amelia and me. His mother's smile faltered. Darling, what are you talking about? Of course there is. We've already sent out save the dates. Then you'll send out cancellations. He turned his attention to Amelia, who was watching him with carefully controlled features. Stand up. Miho, I don't think. I said stand up. Something in his voice made Amelia obey, rising from the sofa with measured grace. Show me your hands. She held them out confused. He grabbed her right hand, studying it carefully, then compared it to the memory of the bruises on Naomi's arm. It matched perfectly. You put your hands on my wife, he said quietly, dangerously. You threatened her. Tried to pay her off. Told her to leave Seoul or you'd make her regret it. His mother gasped. Miho, surely you're mistaken. I'm not. He released Amelia's hand with barely restrained violence. And now you're going to face the consequences of that decision. Amelia lifted her chin defiantly. I did what I had to do. That woman is nothing. A nobody who's trying to trap you with a pregnancy that might not even be yours. The words barely left her mouth before Miho moved. His hand shot out, gripping her wrist with enough force to make her cry out. He pulled her close, so close she could feel the heat of his rage radiating off him in waves. If you ever go close to her again, he growled, his voice dropping to something dark and primal, I will make your life a living hell. This is Korea, not America. I won't hesitate to hurt you and go to jail for it. Amelia's face went white with fear. This wasn't the controlled, businesslike man she'd been meeting for dinners. This was the monster underneath, the one she'd heard whispers about but never believed was real. Miho, let her go. His mother stood, alarmed. You're being unreasonable. She didn't mean. Shut up. He didn't even look at his mother, his eyes locked on Amelia. You have 24 hours to leave Seoul. If I see you anywhere near Naomi, her restaurant, her apartment, or any place she might be, I will destroy you. Do you understand? You're insane, Amelia whispered, but her voice shook. I'm done being civilized. He released her suddenly, and she stumbled back. Get out. Both of you make me sick. His mother moved to Amelia's side, her expression a mix of shock and fury. How dare you speak to us this way? Over some miserable nobody who just wants to get a life through your wealth. Miho's laugh was cold and bitter. You still don't get it, do you? Naomi is worth more than both of you combined. She's genuine, kind, talented. She loved me when I had nothing to offer but myself, not my money or my name. He turned on his mother, and she took an involuntary step back at the fury in his eyes. And you destroyed that. You lied to her. Forged documents. Drove her away while she was carrying my child. And then you had the audacity to try to replace her with this. He gestured dismissively at Amelia, with this manipulative, threatening excuse for a human being. I was trying to protect you. His mother's voice rose, defensive. That girl wasn't suitable. She would have ruined your reputation, weakened your position. She was my wife, the mother of my child. And you destroyed our marriage because she wasn't Korean enough, wasn't wealthy enough, wasn't whatever arbitrary standard you set. He was yelling now, months of fury finally breaking free. You made her think I didn't want her. Made her struggle alone and afraid while pregnant. She was living in poverty, in danger, working herself to death, all because of your lies. I did what any mother would do. You did what a selfish, controlling narcissist would do. He stepped closer to his mother, his voice dropping to something cold and final. And now you've lost me. Permanently. I'm done. No more chances. No more forgiveness. You stay away from me, from Naomi, from our daughter. Miho, please. I'm not finished. He turned back to Amelia. And you. I'm going to have my people dig into your life. Your father's business. Every deal, every transaction, every associate. If there's dirt, and I'm betting there is, I'll find it. And I'll use it. Amelia's face went even paler. You can't. Watch me. He headed for the door, then paused. You have 24 hours. After that, anyone I find uncomfortable is fair game. And trust me, in my world, being uncomfortable is often permanent. He left them standing there, his mother calling after him, Amelia's face white with terror. But he didn't look back. He had more important things to worry about than two women who couldn't understand what actually mattered in life. He had to get home to Naomi. Had to make sure she was safe. Had to start building the life they should have had all along. But first, he made a phone call. Start digging on Amelia Hartford and her father, he told his head of security. Everything. Business dealings, associates, travel records. I want to know every secret they've ever kept. And I want it yesterday. Already on it, sir. And sir? We may have found something interesting. Her father's import-export business. Some of the shipping manifests don't match the cargo records. We're investigating further. Miho smiled, cold and predatory. Good. Keep me updated. Over the next week, Miho kept Naomi close. She'd moved into the penthouse properly now, all her meager belongings brought over and immediately supplemented with everything she might need. Maternity clothes that actually fit. Prenatal vitamins. Books about pregnancy and parenting. A pregnancy pillow. Everything. He also hired a private chef to prepare meals tailored to her nutritional needs, and a housekeeper to make sure the penthouse was always comfortable and clean. Naomi protested at first, claiming it was too much, but he was immovable. You're 6 weeks from giving birth to our daughter, he said firmly. You need to rest and eat properly. Let me do this. She'd finally relented, too exhausted to keep fighting. And despite her reservations, she had to admit it felt good to be taken care of. To sleep in a real bed with proper pillows. To eat nutritious meals prepared by someone who knew what a pregnant woman needed. To not worry about rent or bills, or how she'd afford the next meal. Miho worked from home as much as possible, setting up his office so he could keep an eye on her. He'd catch her sometimes, standing by the window looking out at Seoul, one hand on her belly, a wistful expression on her face. What are you thinking about? He'd ask, coming up behind her, his arms wrapping carefully around her pregnant form. Everything. Nothing. How different things could have been if your mother hadn't lied. She'd lean back against him, letting herself be held. How much time we lost. We'll make up for it, he'd promise, his hands covering hers on her belly. We have the rest of our lives. Meanwhile, his security team was working overtime. The investigation into Amelia and her father was bearing fruit, dark, twisted fruit that made Miho's blood run cold. "Sir, you need to see this," his head of security said during a meeting at the penthouse. Naomi was resting in the bedroom, so they could speak freely. He laid out documents, photographs, shipping manifests. Richard Hartford's import-export business is a front. The legitimate business is real, but it's covering something much darker. Human trafficking. Miho went very still. "Explain." "They move people, mostly women and children, from Southeast Asia through Korea to America and Europe. The shipping manifests are falsified. Containers that should be full of electronics or textiles are actually full of people being sold into slavery or forced labor or worse. More documents. More evidence. Financial records showing payments to corrupt officials. Communications between Richard Hartford and known traffickers. Photos of women and children being loaded into shipping containers." Amelia knows, his security chief continued. "We found emails between her and her father discussing this special cargo. She's not just complicit. She's actively involved in the logistics." Fury and disgust warred in Miho's chest. He ran an underworld empire, yes. He dealt in things that weren't entirely legal. But this was different. This was evil in its purest form. How long until you have everything documented and verified? 2 weeks. Maybe 3. We want to make sure it's airtight before we move. Make it 1 week. Miho's voice was cold, commanding. "And coordinate with the authorities. I want this to be legitimate. Legal. I want them buried so deep they never see daylight again. Sir, if we involve the authorities, there's a risk." "I don't care about the risk." He stood, pacing to the window. "This isn't about business or territory or revenge. This is about stopping monsters. Get it done." His security chief nodded and left, understanding the assignment. Miho stood at the window for a long time, thinking about what he'd just learned. He'd known Amelia was manipulative, cold, willing to threaten a pregnant woman. But this? Being part of a human trafficking operation? His mother had tried to push him toward marriage with a woman who sold people like cargo. The irony was bitter and dark. Behind him, he heard soft footsteps. Naomi emerged from the bedroom, sleepy and beautiful in one of the maternity dresses he'd bought her. "Hey," she said softly. "Everything okay?" "I heard voices. Just business." He crossed to her, pulling her into his arms. "Nothing for you to worry about." She studied his face, and he could see she knew he was keeping something from her. But she didn't push, just leaned into his embrace, trusting him to handle whatever darkness he was dealing with. "Come back to bed," she murmured. "I was cold without you." He let her lead him back to the bedroom, pushing thoughts of trafficking and revenge aside for now. Right now, his world was this woman and their unborn daughter. Everything else could wait. The week passed in tense anticipation. Miho finalized his plans with his security team and coordinated with the police. Meanwhile, his mother had been calling nonstop, leaving voicemails that ranged from angry to pleading to threatening. He ignored them all. Amelia, however, had not left Seoul as he'd ordered. His security reported she was still in the city, still making plans, still scheming. She'd even hired her own security detail, clearly worried about Miho making good on his threats. Good. Let her worry. The engagement party, the one his mother had insisted on planning despite Miho's clear refusal, was scheduled for that Saturday evening. Miho had originally planned to simply not show up. But then he'd had a better idea. "I'm going to that engagement party," he told Naomi on Friday evening. They were having dinner together, a quiet meal in the penthouse. "What? Why?" She looked alarmed. "I thought you wanted nothing to do with Amelia or your mother." "I don't. But I'm going to make something very clear to everyone in our social circle." He took her hand across the table. "I'm going to expose exactly what kind of people Amelia and her father are. Publicly. Permanently. Miho, is that wise? Won't that cause problems for you too?" "Maybe. Probably." He shrugged. "But some things are more important than business or reputation. And stopping human traffickers is one of them." She stared at him, something softening in her expression. You're really going to do this? Risk everything to expose them. I'm really going to do this. He brought her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles gently. I'm done letting terrible people hide behind wealth and connections. And I'm done letting my mother manipulate my life. Then I'm coming with you. Naomi, no. You're 7 months pregnant. You need rest. I'm coming with you, she repeated firmly. If you're going to face them, you're not doing it alone. We're in this together, remember? That's what you said. We face things together. He wanted to argue, but the determination in her eyes stopped him. This was important to her. Being by his side. Supporting him. Being his partner in every sense of the word. Okay, he finally agreed. But if you feel tired or uncomfortable at any point, we leave immediately. No arguments. Deal. Saturday evening arrived with the kind of drama only Seoul's elite could produce. The engagement party was being held at one of the city's most exclusive hotels, the ballroom decorated with excessive flowers and crystal. Everyone who was anyone in Seoul's high society had been invited. Miho and Naomi arrived exactly on time, her hand tucked into his arm, both of them dressed impeccably. She wore a stunning maternity gown he'd had custom-made for her, deep emerald green that brought out her eyes and celebrated her pregnant form rather than hiding it. Her hair was swept up elegantly, and she looked every inch the powerful man's wife she was. The room fell silent when they entered. Heads turned. Whispers erupted. This was not the woman they'd been told was being honored tonight. This was not the American socialite everyone expected to see on Kang Miho's arm. Miho's mother stood near the entrance, greeting guests, and the look of shock and horror on her face when she saw them was almost worth the price of admission. Miho, what are you doing? She hissed in Korean, rushing over. Where is Amelia? Why is she here? She glared at Naomi with undisguised hatred. Naomi is here because she's my wife, Miho said calmly, switching to English so Naomi could understand. And Amelia is about to have a very bad evening. Before his mother could respond, Amelia herself appeared, looking stunning in a white designer gown that was clearly meant to evoke thoughts of a bride. Her father was beside her, a tall, distinguished-looking man with cold eyes. Amelia's face went white when she saw Naomi, then red with fury. What is she doing here? Get her out. This is about to be very interesting, Miho murmured to Naomi. Stay close to me. He led Naomi further into the ballroom, positioning them near the center where everyone could see. His mother and Amelia followed, both trying to maintain composure despite obvious fury. Ladies and gentlemen, Amelia's father called out, tapping a champagne glass for attention. If I could have everyone's attention, please. We're here tonight to celebrate the engagement of my daughter Amelia to Kang Miho. There is no engagement. Miho's voice cut through the ballroom like a knife. There never was. And there never will be. Shocked gasps rippled through the crowd. Richard Hartford's face turned purple with rage. What is the meaning of this? We had an agreement. You had an agreement with my mother. Not with me. Miho gestured to the large screen that had been set up for what was supposed to be a slideshow of the happy couple. And I think it's time everyone learned exactly what kind of family you represent. He pulled out a remote control and clicked. The screen flickered to life. What followed was devastating. Documents showing falsified shipping manifests. Financial records linking Richard Hartford to known human traffickers. Photos of women and children being loaded into shipping containers. Email communications between Amelia and her father discussing special cargo and product delivery. Communications with corrupt officials. Bank accounts in the Cayman Islands. Everything laid bare for Seoul's elite to see. The room went deathly silent. All eyes turned to Richard and Amelia Hartford, watching as their faces went from red to white to gray. This is fabricated. Richard sputtered. He's lying. This is fake. It's all verified, Miho said calmly. And the authorities have copies. In fact, he checked his watch. They should be arriving right about now. As if on cue, the ballroom doors burst open. Korean police poured in, led by a senior detective Miho had been coordinating with. They moved with efficiency and purpose, heading straight for Richard and Amelia Hartford. Richard Hartford, Amelia Hartford, you're under arrest for human trafficking, conspiracy, bribery of government officials. The detective continued reading their rights in both Korean and English while his officers cuffed them both. Amelia struggled, her composure finally breaking completely. This is a setup. He's framing us. Miho, tell them. Tell them you're lying. I'm not lying, Miho said coldly. You're human traffickers. And now you're going to pay for it. You bastard. Richard Hartford snarled as officers dragged him toward the door. You think you're so righteous? You're a criminal yourself. Everyone knows what you do. Maybe, Miho agreed calmly. But I don't sell people like cattle. I don't traffic children. I don't destroy lives for profit. He stepped closer, his voice dropping to something dark and dangerous. You made a fatal mistake when you threatened my wife. When you put your hands on her. That's when you stopped being a business problem and became a personal one. And I always handle personal problems permanently. Amelia was crying now, mascara running down her face, her white gown disheveled from struggling against the officers. She looked at Naomi with pure hatred. This is all your fault. You ruined everything. No, Naomi said quietly, her voice steady despite the chaos. You ruined it yourself when you chose to be a monster. The police led them both out, their protests echoing through the ballroom even as the doors closed behind them. The remaining guests stood in shocked silence, not quite sure what to do or say. Miho's mother stood frozen, her face ashen, the full weight of what she'd tried to force her son into finally hitting her. Mother, Miho said, his voice cold but not quite as harsh as it had been with the Hartfords. Do you understand now? Do you see what you tried to push me toward? You were so concerned about Naomi not being suitable, not being good enough. But you wanted me to marry a woman who sells people. His mother's eyes filled with tears. I didn't know. Miho, I swear I didn't know what they were. You didn't want to know. You didn't care enough to look beyond the surface, beyond the money and the connections. He shook his head. And that's almost as bad. I'm sorry, she whispered, tears streaming down her face now. I'm so sorry. I was wrong. About everything. About her. She looked at Naomi, and for the first time, there was genuine remorse in her eyes. I'm sorry for what I did to you. For lying. For driving you away. For making you suffer. Naomi stood very still, one hand protectively on her belly. The ballroom was silent, everyone watching this family drama unfold. I don't know if I can forgive you, Naomi said honestly. Not yet. Maybe not ever. You destroyed 8 months of my life. Made me think I wasn't wanted. Made me struggle alone while pregnant with your son's child. Those are things I can't just forget. I understand. His mother bowed her head, more tears falling. I don't deserve forgiveness. But I am truly, deeply sorry. And if you'll allow it, I'd like a chance to be a grandmother to your daughter. To make up for even a fraction of the pain I caused. That's not my decision alone, Naomi said, glancing at Miho. He studied his mother for a long moment, weighing everything. The anger was still there, but beneath it was something else. A small hope that maybe, just maybe, they could salvage something from this mess. We'll see, he said finally. It depends entirely on your behavior going forward. If you can respect Naomi, treat her as my wife and the mother of my child, then maybe. But one more manipulation, one more lie, one more attempt to control my life, and you're done. Permanently. His mother nodded, understanding the terms. I'll do better. I promise I'll do better. Miho turned to address the room full of stunned guests. As you've all witnessed tonight, there will be no engagement. There will be no wedding to Amelia Hartford. What there will be is a life with my wife, Naomi, and our daughter. He pulled Naomi closer to his side. Anyone who has a problem with that can leave now and stay out of my life. No one moved. No one spoke. The message was clear. Good, Miho said with grim satisfaction. Now if you'll excuse us, my wife is tired and pregnant, and we're going home. He led Naomi out of the ballroom, his arm protectively around her, leaving behind a room full of shocked society members and his crying mother. Behind them, whispers erupted, but he didn't care. Let them talk. Let them gossip. None of it mattered. In the car, Naomi finally released the breath she'd been holding. That was intense. Are you okay? The baby? We're fine. She touched her belly, feeling their daughter kick as if sensing the drama. Just processing everything. You really did it. You exposed them publicly. I told you I would protect you. Protect our daughter. That meant making sure Amelia and her father could never threaten you again. He took her hand, lacing their fingers together. I meant what I said in there. About us building a life together. About you being my wife, my partner, my everything. I know. She brought his hand to her lips, kissing his knuckles. And I'm ready. Ready to stop being scared. Ready to trust this. Ready to come home for real. Relief and joy flooded through him. Yeah. She smiled, the first real, unguarded smile he'd seen from her in months. Take me home, mijo. Our home. Where we belong. He kissed her then, deep and thorough and full of promise. And as Soul sparkled outside the car windows, two people who'd been torn apart by lies and manipulation finally, truly found their way back to each other. The weeks that followed were busy but beautiful. Mijo had been true to his word about Naomi's design studio, and with his mother's tearful approval and genuine remorse, she'd even offered connections in Soul's fashion world to help get the business off the ground. His mother was trying. Really trying. She sent flowers with heartfelt apology notes. She called to ask how Naomi was feeling, careful to never overstep. She was respectful, deferential even, clearly desperate to earn back some measure of trust. Give her time, Mijo would tell Naomi when she expressed uncertainty about his mother's efforts. She's learning. And if she messes up again, she knows she's done. Naomi's studio was taking shape beautifully. Her designs were gaining attention, her approach to inclusive fashion resonating with women who'd been ignored by the industry. Orders were coming in. Press was calling for interviews. She was building something real, something entirely hers. And through it all, Mijo was there, attending her design meetings when his schedule allowed, rubbing her feet at night when they were swollen, talking to their daughter through Naomi's belly, telling her stories about the world she'd soon enter. They were becoming a family. A real one, built on truth and trust and love that had survived everything trying to destroy it. 3 weeks before Naomi's due date, she went into labor unexpectedly. It started with mild contractions during dinner, progressing rapidly to something much more intense. Mijo, always prepared, had her hospital bag ready and his car waiting. The drive to the hospital was tense. Naomi gripped his hand hard enough to leave marks, breathing through contractions that were coming faster now. Mijo drove carefully but quickly, calling ahead to make sure everything was ready. You're doing great, he kept saying, his voice calm despite the worry in his eyes. Just breathe. We'll be there soon. Easy for you to say, she panted. You're not the one, oh God, another one. I know. Just hold on. We're almost there. They made it to the hospital with minutes to spare. Dr. Han was already there, having been called ahead, and the staff moved with practiced efficiency. Naomi was taken to a private delivery room, Mijo never leaving her side. Labor was long and difficult. 12 hours of pain and exhaustion and fear, but Mijo was there through all of it. Holding her hand. Wiping her forehead. Encouraging her when she wanted to give up. You can do this, he kept saying. You're so strong. The strongest person I know. I can't, it's too much. You can. You are. I believe in you. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, their daughter entered the world with a strong, healthy cry. The sound made both Mijo and Naomi burst into tears. She's perfect, Dr. Han said, placing the squirming, crying baby on Naomi's chest. Absolutely perfect. Congratulations. Naomi held their daughter, tears streaming down her face, overcome with love so intense it was almost painful. Mijo leaned over them both, one hand gently touching his daughter's tiny head, his own face wet with tears. She's beautiful, he whispered. She's so beautiful. You did it. You were amazing. Their daughter had dark hair like both of them, and when she briefly opened her eyes, They were dark and bright and curious. She had Naomi's nose and Miho's chin, a perfect blend of both of them. "What should we name her?" Naomi asked, exhausted but euphoric. They discussed names but never quite decided. Now, looking at their daughter, one name felt right. "Hana," Miho said softly. "It means one in Korean. Flower in Japanese. Perfect for our perfect daughter." "Hana," Naomi repeated, testing it. "Hana Kong. I love it." They spent the next hour in their own little bubble. Just the three of them, getting to know each other, marveling at the tiny life they'd created. Miho held Hana with reverent care, looking at her like she was the most precious thing in the universe. "I promise I'll protect you," he whispered to his daughter. "Always. No one will ever hurt you. You'll grow up knowing you're loved and wanted and valued. I promise." There was a soft knock on the door. A nurse poked her head in. "Mrs. Kong? You have a visitor. Your mother-in-law." Naomi and Miho exchanged glances. They'd called his mother to let her know Naomi was in labor, but hadn't expected her to actually show up. "Let her in," Naomi said after a moment. "But just for a few minutes. I'm exhausted." Miho's mother entered tentatively, her face showing apprehension and hope in equal measure. She was carrying flowers and a large gift bag, but her attention immediately went to the baby in Naomi's arms. "Oh," she breathed, tears immediately filling her eyes. "Oh, she's perfect." She approached slowly, as if afraid of being turned away. When she reached the bedside, she looked at Naomi with an expression of genuine remorse and wonder. "Naomi, her voice broke. "I'm so sorry. For everything. For all the pain I caused you. For almost missing this. For being too proud and foolish to see what was right in front of me." Naomi studied her for a long moment. The anger was still there, buried deep, but it was softened by exhaustion and the overwhelming love she felt holding her daughter. "I'm not ready to fully forgive you," she said honestly. "But I'm willing to try. For Hana's sake. For Miho's sake. For the sake of the family we're trying to build. That's more than I deserve." His mother wiped her eyes. "Thank you. May I hold her? Just for a moment." Naomi looked at Miho. He nodded slightly, leaving the decision to her. Slowly, carefully, Naomi held out Hana. Miho's mother took her granddaughter with trembling hands, cradling her with practiced care. "Hello, little one," she whispered in Korean, tears streaming freely now. "I'm your grandmother. I'm sorry I wasn't there for your mother when she needed me. I'm sorry I almost missed meeting you. But I'm here now and I promise I'll be better. I'll be the grandmother you deserve." She looked up at Naomi and Miho, her face open and vulnerable in a way neither had ever seen before. "Thank you. For this chance. For letting me be part of her life. I won't waste it. I won't make the same mistakes again." "We'll hold you to that," Miho said, but his voice was gentler than it had been. "One mistake, mother. One manipulation or lie, and you're done." "I understand." "And I won't. I promise you both." She handed Hana back to Naomi reluctantly. "I'll let you rest now. But may I visit tomorrow? Bring some traditional seaweed soup for the new mother." Naomi nodded, too exhausted to speak. His mother bowed respectfully to them both and left, leaving the flowers and gift bag behind. "That was big of you," Miho said when they were alone again. Letting her hold Hana. "She's trying. Really trying. I can see it." Naomi looked down at their daughter, who was sleeping now, tiny fist curled against her cheek. "And Hana deserves to know her grandmother. A better version of her grandmother." "A much better version," Miho agreed. He climbed carefully onto the hospital bed beside Naomi, wrapping his arms around both his girls. "I love you. Both of you. So much it's almost scary." "I love you too." Naomi leaned against him, exhausted but happy. "We made it. Through everything. All the lies and pain and separation. We made it. We did." He kissed her temple softly. "And we're never going to be separated again. I promise you that." They fell asleep like that, the three of them curled together. A family finally complete. A family that had survived manipulation and lies and pain to find their way back to each other. Outside the hospital window, souls sparkled in the night. The city went on, indifferent to the small miracle that had just occurred in one room. But for Miho and Naomi, nothing else mattered except the tiny life sleeping between them. Their daughter. Their future. Their happy ending, hard-won and precious, because of everything it had cost them to reach it. And as dawn broke over Seoul the next morning, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, a new chapter began for the Kang family. One built on truth, trust, and love that had proven stronger than anything trying to destroy it. Thank you for making it to the end of the story. I'm sure you were blown away by the show of love and kindness. To support and spread this love, kindly hit the subscribe button if you haven't. Like and share so we can join hands in spreading love and kindness. Turn on the notification bell so you don't get to miss our next story. See you in the next one. Bye.